Okay, in this video I want to cover some of the misconceptions I feel there are about the itemization of Irelia, particularly around the items of Titanic, Hydra, Steraks, and BT, and sort of their position in builds for Irelia. And the common argument I see is that Titanic Hydra is a split push item, and excuse the cat. Steraks Gauge is quite a strong item on her, and I think actually Steraks Gauge at this point in time is a very weak item on Irelia. And Titanic Hydra for a long time has been actually a team fighting favourite um, among some of the more experienced Irelia players. So I want to go over some of the math, some small examples, not particularly the greatest examples, and some of the the uses of how to use the items correctly. I think overall Titanic is probably the strongest team fighting item on Irelia at the moment. It has been for a long time. It gives a good combination of tankiness through the flat HP. It gives burst through the active. It gives it potentially gives utility through using combining it with Cleaver to give you an armor shred. Obviously, you can't always do that. Not always that much value in getting the armor shred, say if there's another person building Cleaver on your team, but it is a potential route that you can use, and I think it's very much undervalued by a lot of players. So the first thing I want to do is look at an example of how much damage Titanic actually does with the active. And this is quite an old clip. As you see, this is old Herald, but we can just take a look at the physical damage numbers anyway from the clip. So to go over it in slow motion, you'll see I activate my Titanic active just before my Q. So I get 150 damage from the Herald active. The Herald on hit, and then 563 physical damage from the Titanic Hydra active and the Q. Here in this clip we are obviously maxing Q. We are 2 levels ahead of the Vega, but I don't think we're outrageously fed in this game. And anyway, you can just apply these numbers to a higher level opponent and they'll be roughly the same. So overall we do, just quickly do the math, 152 damage, 563 from the active, 149 from the auto attack afterwards. So we're doing 860 damage, just off just more than 860 damage with simply a Q auto attack and the Titanic Hydra active. So, how much better is this than other items? Well, if we look at this situation specifically, we're almost 2.5k HP. If we use a typical level 16 scenario, at level 16, Irelia's health is 1.9k. Triforce gives you 250. Titanic gives you 450. So we're looking at 2.6k health at level 16. So if we take this 2.6k health without buying any other armor items, without using scaling, health, runes or anything like that, or masteries for giving us HP, we're looking at the 40 base damage on the active, and then the 10% maximum health scaling, which is in this case going to be 260 damage. So we're getting 300 damage from a single item that's giving us tank stats, that's giving us some AD, that's giving us the area of effect, and this item is 3.5k gold. It's not that cheap, but the active is only 20 seconds. You compare that to something like Gunblade, which has similar numbers, and you're looking at 45-second cooldown for that instead of 20, so there's less than half of Gunblade. So it's a lot of damage out of one item. Then so we're going to compare that then to Steraks Gauge. Steraks Gauge gives us the 30% base attack damage. This is supposedly synergizing with Sheen, with the Sheen proc of Triforce, which is 200% base AD. So the extra damage we're getting then on our Sheen proc is 66 damage. Every auto attack and every Q deals 33 damage for auto attack and 1.2 scaling, so that's 40 damage on our Q. So so this item is increasing our auto attacks by 30, our Q by 40, our Sheen by 66. Now, the Titanic Hydra gives us 35 attack damage, which, unlike Steraks Gauge, this scales with our ult. This means 70 extra damage for our 4 ult casts, which are, remember, these are area of effect. We're going to be dealing area of effect damage with the active and passive of Titanic Hydra, and then we have the on-hit damage from the passive on Titanic Hydra, which is 5 and 1% of max health, so that would be 30 damage on hit anyway. Then we have to consider, well, this on-hit damage is not blocked by Ninja Tabi, while Steraks, the base AD, it just counts as normal attack damage. It's reduced by Tabi, but that same 30% base AD is mirrored by the attack damage stats we get from Titanic Hydra. So in terms of damage, Steraks Gauge is actually very much inferior to Titanic. I'm sure there's that 900 gold difference, but really these items are much more based on slot efficiency, and you have to remember that you're really snowballing off your Triforce spike when you're getting these items, because these are items you get second. You usually get them second item immediately after your Triforce. So a lot of the weaknesses of the build path of Titanic Hydra are actually covered by the fact that you are on your Triforce power spike at this time. So in terms of damage, right, Titanic Hydra is pretty good. And remember, this active, it's very easy to activate in team fights. We can even, in situations where we're making picks, we can quite easily use the active to be an auto reset. So then we can, we're adding an extra 150 or so damage to our combo, 150 physical damage, 75 true damage to our QAA, and then Titanic AA combo. And then remember, of course, the extra ult damage. And now we'll go over the tankiness later, incorporating BT into the calculation. In terms of damage, what I'll say about BT is BT has one of the advantages is the BF sword. BF sword is one of the most stat efficient items on AD casters essentially. I've experimented a little bit with actually getting BF sword in first base on Irelia. I'd say it's reasonably strong, but it's very risky because of the delay it puts you on your Triforce. But getting BF sword after Triforce is extremely strong, and it was one of the reasons items such as Duskblade was probably the biggest example of an item that rested so heavily on the BF sword and converting that into your snowball as well. So BT really is the one that has the best build path. Steraks Gauge, you're looking at Jorims and the longsword, which isn't actually that brilliant anyway. So if you're really looking at build paths, BT is the better one. And in terms of damage, BT gives us 80 attack damage, so that's increasing damage on our ult. it's covering up this on hit damage from the Titanic Hydra, but it of course doesn't give us the AoE, so we can't as quickly go into a side lane, push it up, and then look for a team fight or a pick, which is of course one of the nice advantages about Titanic is the wave clear. But really using the wave clear, the way you're going to use it with Titanic is not to go into a side lane and split push and just draw pressure to you. What you're going to do is you're going to push a minion wave up quickly, and then you're going to group with your team and look for a team fight like that. So anyway, so that covers Steraks, and then the next one is of course the tankiness of the three items. So Titanic Hydra gives us the 450 health. Okay, Steraks Gauge only gives us 400 health, but we have the shield, which is 75% bonus health. If we're looking at the 2.6k HP, well, if we're looking at just the Triforce and Steraks Gauge, we're looking about 550 health on the shield, but the shield decays. This is actually incorrect here. The shield decays over 3 seconds, not the 8 seconds that the additional attack damage. Not the 8 seconds that the additional attack damage lasts. And the shield is decaying, so it's essentially you're losing actually some of the value of the shield itself to the shield decaying. So we're looking at potentially up to around 900 extra health. So in that sense, you know, we can potentially get a lot of value out of Steraks, but the problem I end up having with it is just that the reliability of it is just too low. It's too inconsistent. You can get it procced in situations where, you know, you'll get it procced and then you'll have take like no damage for the 3 seconds that the shield decays in. You can't control when it's procced, like Locket, for example. You can predictively use it when you feel like you're going to get a combo Locket. If we look at the stats on Locket's shield, Locket maxes out, well, it's almost 600 at level 16, and then it maxes out at 665. And of course, this shield goes on to our allies as well. And remember that we're a solo laner, so we're getting these levels. The level scaling on the Locket is going quicker. So Locket is really the shield item you want. And then of course the other thing with Locket is it's giving us these resists to go along with the health tankiness that we're getting from the shield and from other items that we buy alongside it. So we're buying Titanic Hydra, we're buying potentially Cleaver, which are giving us a lot of health, and then these resists come in quite nicely. And if we look at the magic resist on this item as well, it's quite strong stat wise. And if we take a quick look at Spirit Visage gives us 55 magic resist. Well, Locket gives us 60. Spirit Visage gives us 450 health. The shield on Locket gives us more. Sure, we don't get the CDR, but I mean, there's a huge cost difference to go into that. We get the armor as well, we get the shield on our allies. So, you know, Locket is a really powerful item at the moment, and it very much displaces Steraks in the shield category, and actually also more as well. If you're thinking of building more, I would say just forget about it, buy Locket instead if you need magic resist. So then moving on to the tankiness of the BT, which I mentioned earlier. Well, BT gives us 20% lifesteal, so we're looking at about 100, 400 damage per Sheen Q is realistic. So we're looking at, we're getting 100 health back, and remember BT has the overshield, unlike Blade of the Ruined King, unlike Ravenous Hydra. So if we're engaging with our Q before we're taking any damage, this healing is still going somewhere, and we can walk into the team fight, with the shield stacked up, and it doesn't actually time out very quickly. So there's a clip I have of that in this game. Yeah. So if we look closely at some of the health I'm getting back during this fight, right? Let's start here. Well, there's my shield goes up there, right? I'm healing 23 auto attack, 26 of the auto attack. Watch this Q, 102. So this all adds up, and in a situation where we're getting to auto attack a lot like this, and you can see here it really takes off. You know, we're out healing the Shen at this point. And sure, I'm extremely fed in this situation, but imagine in other situations where you're getting a lot of auto attacks off, this really adds up, and the high damage output of BT is the other thing. And then of course remember it's sustained, so you know you go into a team fight or you make a pick, you can sustain back up from the damage you take, and you simply can't do that with Titanic, with Steraks. So you know this adds up a lot. And then of course we have higher AD, so we're getting increased healing off our ult as well. So overall, really, BT is potentially the highest sustain item we can get. However, obviously that's gated by the fact that we do need to be able to get a lot of auto attacks off. If we're not getting auto attacks off, we're not going to get lifesteal, and that's when BT becomes a dead weight, really. So basically, if we're looking for pure team fighting, we're going to take Titanic Hydra. We're probably going to pair it with Cleaver. You're going to be looking towards a Locket, and that's sort of the most generic build that you can get for Irelia at the moment, I think, is Triforce, Titanic, Locket, and Cleaver. For lifesteal build, we'd be looking at BT, potentially QSS, Locket, potentially Cleaver as well. And the key thing to the lifesteal build is going to be that we're playing against the low CC team comp. We're going to be getting a lot of auto attacks off before we get bursted. So it's a little bit more of a snowball position you have to be in, but it definitely has very strong uses as an item on Irelia. And then of course the Blade of the Ruin King. I don't think Blade of the Ruin King is at all strong on Irelia at the moment. You have to get a lot of auto attacks for it to be worth it damage wise. You know, if you're hitting a squishy, your initial Q is going to deal a lot of damage. Blade of the Ruin King deals current health damage, so you're going to be losing a lot of the value of the item like that. And really, the only place it's very useful is if you're going to be split pushing and hitting people 1v1 in a side lane. But then you're not really playing into Irelia's strength at all. Irelia's strength is in team fighting. You compare it to a champion like Jax, you compare it to someone like Riven. Well, Riven is quite strong team fighting, but she's flash reliant. But Jax, for example, one of the huge things about Irelia's kit is that her Q is sort of part of her main damage sources. You know, she's an auto attack based bruiser, but her Q is one of the auto attacks. Unlike Jax, where he actually has to Q to you and then auto attack to get auto attacks off. So he's much more vulnerable to CC in that sense. Irelia, you can Q auto into a team fight, you can be CC'd and then Q auto again when your Q comes off cooldown, and you can still do quite a lot of damage in a team fight. In that way, your Q auto plus your ult, you're looking at 1.5, 2k damage potentially when you're building AD. And so in that sense, Titanic plays very much into that. You're not gated by having to get a lot of auto attacks off, because you get so much damage on that initial Q. So I hope that clears up the questions about itemization. If you have any questions, have a look in the comments. Go to Irelia mains, talk about the items there. we like to discuss stuff like that. Come to the Discord server or whatever. It's good to discuss things like that because, you know, in the end of the day, that's how the meta evolves, is people bringing new ideas to the table. Locket was Az's idea. Titanic originally, uh, I think it was originally popularized by Pool, and that was back in season 6. So, you know, these items don't just become, you know, it's not big. These meta shifts are not created at the top by big famous people. These are just average solo queue players that are trying new things out and seeing what works. So discussing new things like that is good. So yeah, hope you learned something. Check out all the links, whatnot, in the description if you want to support me or whatever. If you'd like coaching, whatever. And yeah, see you in the next one.